Introducing our past AIOS president, Dr. Quresh Maskati. He's currently the director of Maskati Eye Clinic, Mumbai. Quresh sir has completed his super specialization in diseases of the cornea and the anterior segment from Boston, USA. Apart from excelling in our ophthalmic field by being the founding member and the current president of the Cornea Society of India, Dr. Maskati enjoys public speaking and loves giving talks and lectures at various ophthalmic and non-ophthalmic platforms. Known for his comic timing and believes in a bit of humor in practice. Today, we invite Dr. Maskati to talk about the optimum use of your ophthalmic setup. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Tusha. And my topic is group practice. So, what are the problems faced by newcomers who are fresh out of medical college? They have financial problems. They don't have a big bank balance by which they can set up a huge individual practice. They have clinical problems. They have just come out of, say, medical college. Even if they've not done an institute, they're not really sure of whether this is a retinal detachment or retinoschisis or whatever. They have admin problems. They don't have people at their beck and call, 5 secretaries and 5 clinical assistants. They know they are very good at their cataract or their glaucoma or something, but to present that to patients and to convince patients that they're good becomes very difficult because a walk-in patient comes once in 4 days. And then you just newly married, you've got a family, and the family says, why are we not really going for a holiday? And you can't tell them that's because I haven't earned my enough bread to go for a holiday. I can't leave my practice. If I leave my practice, the walk-in patient who comes every 3rd day or 4th day will see an empty clinic and not come again, and I will lose patients. And he wants to attend the AIS conference as and when it becomes non-Zoom. But he finds it difficult to again get away for a week or so to attend conferences to refine his skills. So these are the issues faced typically by newcomers, whether they come out fresh from a medical college or after medical college they go for a fellowship and then come out somewhere, and they still find it difficult because of these issues. So the other problems, you're not really known to people. I mean, you may have lived in Mumbai city in a particular area, but you don't get space in that area. So you open in another area, you don't know people there, people don't know you. The patient look towards you with some suspicion. Who is this fresh guy, newcomer, black hair, black beard, and sitting and reading books in his clinic? You don't have a big name or a vast social circle or any godfather. You're not already Rotary president like Mohan Rajan or something like that. So you have you don't have a vast social circle. By the time you join Rotary, it takes time to build up that network. And the clinic may not be known by people. It's in some area which you could afford, and it's not. It's a busy area, but people don't know you. It's not centrally located. So these are some of the pitfalls of starting out life, coming out from an institute or a medical college, and immediately going into practice. So therefore, one of the options is group practice. Why group practice? You can buy more equipment if you've got the number of people who are with you. You need not look for investors. As Mahipal says, he came out and was lucky enough to find an investor willing to invest for him, a businessman, a non-medical person. But here, maybe some of you, 4, 5 of you can pool resources and have a more centrally located clinic, perhaps buy more equipment. I need a phaco, I need a retina thing, somebody else, the oculoplasty fellow needs something, and you can pool in resources and buy more equipment. Plus, everything that you buy will be utilized more. You buy a phaco machine, 5 guys are going to use the phaco instead of 1 guy. So more than a single user. So whatever bank loans you've taken, the chances that you can repay the bank loans faster. You can also afford to fall sick. You can afford to take holidays without a total loss of income. You shouldn't be doing it in the first 1 or 2 years. But as group practice builds up, by the 2nd year itself, you all can take turns for taking holidays. You can, if somebody falls sick, it doesn't matter. You can say, I'm sorry, Gaurav is not there today, but we have Tusha here, and he can look after your cataract. Don't worry about it. And people tend to say, yes, it's a sort of since it's a group of like-minded individuals, all of them must be equally good. So Gaurav Luthra can take a holiday. Tushya, though he's junior to him, can take over and do a few cataracts till Gaurav comes back. And better if colleagues are from different subspecialties, the patient doesn't have to be referred out for non-cataract surgeries. Most of us feel we are okay in cataract. But for the other specialties, like Mohan showed you a picture of a blocked NLD or an endophthalmitis or a vitreous hemorrhage or a subretinal hemorrhage. I think those are the 3 pictures Mohan showed. You don't have to send the patients out. You have people in-house who can look after it. Patient feels secure. He doesn't have to go anywhere else. Everything that he comes with will be taken care of. So your less dependence on family physicians. Different cities have different dependencies. In Mumbai, we have a newcomer setting up practice is very much dependent on family physicians who are unethical and usually take a kickback from the single solo practitioner. They take a kickback. In some of the places in the suburbs, Himanshu will know this, they take 100% kickback, which means in advance, which means that you pay them, say, a lakh of rupees first. So you're paying banks, but you pay the family physician a lakh of rupees, and then he refers X amount of patients to you. And when he determines that that lakh has been used up, you give him the next lakh and he refers a Y number of patients to you till such time as you build your own practice. So almost every penny that you earn is given in advance to the family physician. So if you have a group practice, it doesn't need that dependence on family physicians. And you can achieve the desired volume that both Mahipal and Mohan have been talking about, 100 patients a day, which will translate to 100 surgeries in a month. That volume practice can be achieved much easier if you've got a group practice than with individual solo private practice. And if you're in doubt, you can have a second opinion in-house in a complex case very easily. You have a uveitis which has got it's autoimmune, and you're wondering whether you want to give methotrexate or you want to give Celcept to the patient. So things like this, where you would have to refer outside. 3-4 of you can get together without the patient knowing. You call the patient after investigations. He comes back after 2 days. In those 2 days, you talk to 5 of your colleagues who are in-house with you, and you come up a treatment plan. So it benefits everybody. So what are the types of group practice we have? We have one which is very common, a group only for a particular procedure, like 15 people joining hands for a single LASIK machine, or retina associates, 5 retina specialists for all types of retina surgeries. One fellow does only the intravitreal injections, one fellow does the lasers, third one does the surgeries, and so on. So you could, one does only ROP. So you could have that super specialization in a large tier 1 city. And joining hand for a LASIK machine is fairly common all over because you get better return on investment than one person. And the advantages, for example, in Saifi Hospital, Trust Hospital where I go, the hospital was not willing to put up a LASIK machine. So 12 of us got together and put in a LASIK machine. We formed an LLP. And pretty soon we realized that even with 12 of us, we were not able to generate the volumes, and we were not doing the profit. So within 2 years of buying the machine, and we had not bought the machine, we had leased it from a company, we could return the machine, cut our losses, and move ahead. Otherwise, you'd have to buy and sell machines. Whenever a technology changes, you bought a LASIK machine and now there's new technology, you want to buy another one. It's virtually impossible to sell your machine and then buy one. If you're in group practice, it becomes much easier. So you could have groups for a particular procedure, and you could have multi-specialty groups where cornea, glaucoma, retina, oculoplasty, everybody gets together. This is much easier to do when you're starting practice, while the other one of 15 people for a particular machine is much easier to do when you're 10 years or more into practice. So how do you form a group? If you're in an institute or recently passed from one, you just talk to colleagues from your batch, a couple of batches senior or junior to you. Make sure, it's extremely important at this point, that the colleagues are like-minded and not overly ambitious, because otherwise they will be pulling you down in front of patients, and then you'll mess up the group practice. Once you've recruited just 1 or 2 good persons, they in turn can invite their friends. And of course, it's not open door policy. They don't just invite you, study their biodata, sit down in a group and decide whether the friend whom they're inviting will fit into your scheme of things. So just because all these Chinese look alike, you don't have to invite all of them in. So you need to really pay a lot of attention to whom you're bringing in, because one bad apple can really spoil the group. He comes in, he's in 2 minds, within 6 months he wants to leave, and then people see that people are leaving the group, and that cuts a very bad impression with patients. So various types, I won't go into the details of this. It could be a partnership firm, registered, unregistered, a private limited company, Section 25, a trust, association of persons for profit, and LLP. So these are some of the things which you need to discuss with a finance person. As Himanshu rightly said, we are the last persons to be taught finance, and you need to have a friend at least who's in finance who will tell you which of these would be best suited for you. So as I told you, when we did a LASIK practice, we formed an LLP, we kept a machine, gave it back, and in 3 years dissolved the LLP, and we are all fine. So what are the limitations? Everything, solo practice has limitations, the group practice has limitations. Here it needs very high level of understanding between the partners. This is the key. Basic rules have to be followed by everybody. A high morality standards have to be understood by everybody, that there is a sort of a group theme which runs through the group. There's no question of deception at all. You can't put money into your pocket. If a patient has paid you in cash, you don't put that money in the pocket. It goes all to the group, and then it's divided as per whatever you have worked out. And small incidents may become a big issue. So again, it has to be like-minded people, and it's better to get rid of somebody who's not following the group ethic early rather than late. So in financial matters, don't keep anything unspoken. Maipal talked about writing down things. You need to discuss right at the beginning when you start the group, discuss all possible scenarios before you sign an MOU with each other. There should be a clear written exit policy in case a colleague wants to quit. What is the way you're going to allow him? How much money is he going to take out? On what way? Have a financial expert vet the document which you will all sign. It should be a win-win for all partners. That's a given. Management, policy making should be done by everybody in the group. How are we going to invest long term? What capital assets are we going to have? Whom is it going to belong to? How are we going to expand? Are we going to open more centers? Are we going to diversify? How are we going to do the maintenance of the plant and machinery, the place, the machines? Who is going to look after day-to-day management? It could be one of the group for 15 days or a month or 3 months, and then somebody else takes over. So there's no group leader. It's a group coordinator, which would be better. Who's going to handle the staff? How are we going to maintain high standards? So as I said, sharing responsibility should be everybody. One fellow can't eat pan and sit on the side. You can meet maybe once a week or more often for day-to-day matters. Once a month for more medium range or long-term policy matters. Once every 3 months, you all meet, have a small party and hand over charge to the next person who's going to look after the day-to-day management, give him a bouquet of roses with thorns in it because now it's his problem. So moving on from group practice, as I told you, I started solo practice. My father was there in practice for 30 years before me. So I inherited his practice. He had his nursing home and consulting in the same premises. Then towards the end of his practice, it got too small for him. So he had the OPD separate and a nursing home separate. He had one operation theater because he was a sole surgeon and 16 rooms because the patient stayed for 5 days post-op. So we changed that later on. We have now 3 large operating theaters and just 8 beds. All the possible permissions and licenses are in place, which in Mumbai is not so easy. So I've opened the nursing home to 7 or 8 eye surgeons. They use my nursing home. Since I've got a lot of space there, they keep their own microscopes, their own phaco machines are kept in the theater. I don't give my stuff out. Even the small instruments, the forceps and scissors are theirs alone. And they are kept separately in labeled drums or in labeled cupboards to be autoclaved by the nurse when needed. So they call up the nurse and say, I've got 2 phacos tomorrow. Then she will autoclave their sets. She knows their sets. She will autoclave and keep things ready. So some surgeons even bring their own assistants, which is fine. I provide the space and I do give them soap and running water. They don't have to bring their own soap with them. We provide the soap, liquid is solid both. Running water is given to them. Consumables like gloves, IOLs, maybe their own. Some of them keep it in cupboards to save money. Or they can take it from my stock. I have this with me on actual costs. I don't make money on this. And the beauty is we often enjoy a cup of tea together. If we meet in the nursing home, I'm operating in theater 1. Dr. Jahangir says operating in theater 2. And I tell him, wait for me, I'll finish in 15 minutes. And then we enjoy a cup of tea. So it's a win-win situation for me and the colleagues. So to conclude, to succeed in group practice, you need 3 things: an empathetic heart, at least one brainy person in the group for non-ophthalmic matters to solve, and some jugaad from time to time, which you may need to do, like this guy who's preserved his spectacles for 20 years. Thank you for your attention. I urge those who are planning to start practice to make the jump from what you are to what you want to be. Make a leap of faith and get into group practice. And I apologize if I've overloaded you with information.
Quresh, brilliant as usual, always. So something very important, the way ahead will be either corporate practice or group practice. To buy property, to buy equipment further ahead, very difficult to survive on your own. And as Quresh mentioned, getting licenses with municipal authorities, first buying a place in any place. Most people want doctors near them, but not in the same building. They will not let you get your licenses. They will not cooperate with you. They will fight tooth and nail. So a lot of doctors have bought property in residential areas and are in a big fix because they cannot convert it. And then the municipal authorities now, to give you a nursing home license, want change of user. You ask me what it means to get change of user. It's a hell of a job. It can take 5-10 years. It's something terrible because tremendously corrupt and so many permissions and so many problems. Getting a fire license is a difficult itself. And all these things need to be renewed. So what Quresh is saying makes a lot of sense. For him to have a nursing home with all the licenses is a big asset. You may not have licenses, but tomorrow if you get a medical legal, everybody will pounce on you. This is where the whole problem lies. Even the government doesn't know what is going on, and all these small fires somewhere else and you can be in big trouble. So this is what is so important, that getting these licenses, it'll take hell of a lot of time, and we are not used to corrupting BMC. We are not used to getting work done from BMC officers or fire officers and compliances and all those compliances. So group practice, brilliant, Quresh, what you're saying makes sense, but it all begins at home, and most professionals don't trust each other. That's the unfortunate part, we can never have strikes with doctors. They never succeed. It's like class 4, class 5, एक बार बोल दिया strike तो सब लोग रात को strike पे.
Farmers are better.
Yeah, farmers and all of them are better. And look at Mahipal smiling with a big smile. Doctors are never united. So we don't have a unit. Once somebody says one doctor has been hit, no, he must be wrong somewhere. Suddenly somebody will start some nonsense. First, go and hit that guy back. We are not united. That's where this is very important. Second, trusting each other. What he says, the most moral fundamental principle in getting a group practice. And it's a win-win situation. Takes a little time. Lawyers, if they see from the rest of the world that no big firm in New York, all the top attorneys, they all have 200, 500 partners. Even all the big law firms in India have partners. If we learn from those guys, it becomes so much more easier. That it is the best beneficial thing in the long run, managing everything. Thanks, Quresh, for your indeed great pearls.
Can I ask one question, Himanshu?
Yes.
Quresh, lovely talk. I just want to ask you why the group practice is not very popular in our country. In US, if you take 30, 40 years back, they started group practice. Okay. In my opinion, there are, I think, two reasons. One is as Himanshu, you also told that I think the wavelength of the people are very, very important, number one. Number two, in group practice, you can't have an individual name. I think that is a very important. For example, you cannot have Rajan Eye Care or Agarwal or Mehta Eye Care or whatever. You should have something like Center for Sight or the Eye Foundation or something. It's a common name. Because if you have Rajan Eye Care, they think they are working for Mohan Rajan. Everything will get, the name will get for Mohan. Ultimately, the good name will come to Mohan Rajan only. So I think that is a fundamental point, in my opinion, because if you take the US, all the group practices, it's all retina associates, cornea associates, and orthopedic associates, everything in Cleveland. If you go, all these associates will be there, and it's a very general name. It's not mentioning that it's Mahipal Satdev or Mohan Rajan or Himanshu or Quresh or Gaurav Luthra, nothing. Okay, you go into that. I think that is, a very fundamental point as far as group practice is concerned. I want Mahipal's opinion. What is the reason for that?
Well, I think you guys have kind of raised you're playing the devil's advocate, I would say, and that's what I wanted to do. What Quresh said is being half pregnant. There's nothing like being half pregnant, because what he said of his model, Quresh, I just want to stir up this thing. He said you get your own phaco machine, you get your own instruments, you use here. So it's basically being half pregnant. You are not maximizing the whole thing. The basic thing is that the microscope and the phaco cost you ₹1 crore. If you look at a high-end Lumera high-end, you look at a Signature Pro, etc., that's ₹1 crore. So if you are not using ₹1 crore together, all that you are using is an infrastructure, and that's about it. So ultimately, what Himanshu said and what Mohan said, I'll pick up from there. The first thing is the rate limiting step is your name. Never ever, if you want to grow, put your name as a prefix or a suffix. That is the most important thing, and that's a self-defeating situation that you do. Because today, if say there are X number of people working, say today we have opened a center in Surat and they're working in Center for Sight or whatever it is, nobody knows Mahipal Sachdev in Surat. And it is not that those doctors are working for me. They get a sense of an independence or a sense of like you can identify yourself with a group or whatever or something like that. But the rate is the first thing. I agree with you, Mohan. That is a self-limiting step, and that is where the ego, unfortunately, doctors have the biggest ego, and that is where the problem comes, because you will never succeed in a group practice in India, because we don't have even democracy. We have what is called as dangocracy. Matlab in Punjabi you say dang hoti hai na, a stick. So you keep fighting on non-issues. So the problem therefore is that look at, there may be goods and bads, but you look at China and you look at India. You are talking of there has to be some amount of autocracy, or there has to be a hierarchical head who ultimately can take the decision. If everybody is equal, then it is very, very difficult, specifically with the, as they say that if you have 10 economists, you have 20 opinions. So similarly, if you have 10 highly read ophthalmologists sitting together, you will have 20 opinions. And if there is nobody who's at the top to ultimately take a decision, you are going to end up in divorce. That is the biggest problem, which I feel there are very few examples. There are examples in India, Mohan, of group practice, but more often than not, divorces have happened more in group practices than they have happened in a structure like where there is a hierarchical head. So in this particular field, I am of the personal opinion, I may be wrong, there is nothing right or wrong, but there has to be a hierarchy and there has to be somebody who has to ultimately call the shots if there is a disagreement. which is very often to happen. So these
And
two
just,
Himanshu
working on this. Yeah.
And what Mohan made, Mohan, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Never put your name in front. That is a rate limiting step. And Himanshu, I agree with you. It is the ego problem, lack of hierarchy, and lack of like-mindedness. You may be like-minded today. Tomorrow you get married. Your wife or a husband comes in and starts to say that tu uski gulami kar raha hai ya ye kar raha hai. Often it's the spouses who cause the problem between friends or between people who thought were doing well. So I think there is a complexity that is involved of human interaction, which is the reason why you can't or you don't succeed, you don't have great successful models of group practice. At the end of the day, मैं retina का बंदा हूँ, आप cataract के बंदे हैं, you say I do 100 cataracts, I am doing much more, why should I get the same share as a retina? People don't understand that. They go into a myopic field of vision and they say कि भाई मैं बड़ा या तू बड़ा, बड़ा कौन? That's what they say in Punjabi, के who out of the two. So that is where the problem. So Quresh,
Yeah. No. I'll see what you're saying. Maipal makes a lot of sense. But usually the person who initiates the group practice is considered by everyone in the hierarchy to be a little higher. He invites people in. So there is that hierarchy need not be a problem. As Mohan says, if they succeed so much in the US, there is no reason why it can't. And youngsters are now seeing the writing on the wall, as Himanshu said, that unless you do group or corporate, there is no third way to go. As far as use of equipment in my nursing home, see, the problem is that the opening of the nursing home, the sharing decision to share the nursing home was an afterthought. 20 years after the nursing home was established, when in my dad's time, it was doing very well as a solo thing. We didn't need phaco machines or anything like that, investment. But it was an afterthought that I opened it. So I already had my own stuff. And people who came in are all senior surgeons who had nursing homes which closed down because of problems with licensing and all that. So they had equipment, they didn't know what to do, but they were comfortable with those. So I said, come, put it here and work. That is how I got these people in. There are a couple of eye surgeons from this group are using my we have both the schemes going on. People are using my equipment, so I'm having better use of my equipment. Those who got their own equipment, I'm allowing them to park it there. Now youngsters who are coming in, I'm telling them, couple of new people are joining in. I said, don't buy anything, everything is there here. Microscope, phaco, everything is available. So it's a mix and match because of the circumstances.
So, Chris, thanks. Here, I'm just reminded, everybody has huge egos. I'm a better surgeon than the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
This is the biggest thing which
I know mine. In my case, it's true. Yeah.
Mine is bigger than yours. That story. That is ultimately the problem. But उधर एक ही गाना याद आता है. मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ. मैं पल दो पल का सर्जन हूँ.
Correct.
पल दो पल मेरी जवानी है. पल दो पल मेरी हस्ती है. I think that's where I would say that this is something important. Great discussion. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. And I realized, Himanshu, that 25 years. We are 25 years now since Rajan Aikar has started. But I realized because when Maipal, we had a session in Cochin. I don't know whether you remember Maipal in 2012, AUS on this particular session. And Maipal, what's in a name? Okay. At that time I realized, okay, I shouldn't have started with my father's name, Rajan Aikar. And if I had a common name, more people would have joined me. Of course, about 10 surgeons are operating in my place, but I would have made it 20, 30 or what the Quresh told, but something which is bigger. And that could have been an impetus for the growth. I could have become like Center for Sight or the Eye Foundation and started more branches. But I feel that is a major stumbling block as far as I am concerned. I'm repeating that mistake of having Rajan Aikar as a name. Now I can't change the name 25 years down the line, but I'm advising all the new people who are coming to me and telling, please start with the common name. So that is.
That's very sweet of you to take responsibility and say that. Very, very sweet of you.
Dr. Quresh, sir, there was something which I thought that we did not touch here is that when you talk about a group practice, you have to talk about investments also, like who is going to invest how much. Unless we look at that, because with responsibility, with the privileges should come some responsibility and investment, because then only a group can succeed. So there's no doubt that a group practice or a corporate structure is the only way to go. Individual practitioners will not be able to kind of thrive today. So I think in the group, as everybody discussed, that there could be a senior two partners who probably started the group and then took on. So you have to have clear terms. And then when you add people, they can be in two ways. They can be people who can join the group without investing into it, and they will not have the privileges of bringing in the profits from the group, and they could be probably just there. And then if you have people who have joined your practice in the group, and you like their way of working, and in a year or so you realize that they can be their ideology matches with that of the group, they can be promoted to becoming practice stakeholders in the group by investing maybe some money or something, or maybe even getting something out of it, because then their involvement with the group becomes much more. So that's one thing I thought is very important, that
deciding about how to form a group is very important. For example, in my practice, it's like we are about 10 doctors working, but I don't have partners in the group. It's an enterprise where we have the advantages of having 10 different specialists working with us, covering all the specialities. So a group practice would be different from a solo owned big hospital where you have 8 or 10 doctors. So both models utilize the benefits of sharing of equipment, sharing of space, sharing of everything, but the models are totally different. And my practice, my system cannot be called as a group practice itself, but it's more like what Mohan Rajan sir is doing, where he does all the investment, he owns all the stuff, and he kind of takes along 10 odd consultants. So I think eventually it's important, if your group has to go ahead, to have the people join you whom you like, to kind of have a stake in your facility, which is not very easy to do, because many people are reluctant to invest as well. So it's not going to be that easy. Second thing I thought was what Dr. Maipal sir touched about, Dr. Quresh's model, which he of course clarified. I was just thinking, if those 5 or 6 surgeons who kept their equipments, you convince them to just use one phaco machine and one microscope, and you could have invested in 5-6 other things. So there could be an additional YAG laser there. There could be probably a fundus camera there. There could be a even a femtosecond laser or a refractive surgery setup, and people would have stakes in it, and it could all be cross utilized, and it could grow so much better than everybody keeping their own stuff. So that's one thing which I thought. And of course, group practice is the other alternative to corporate structures, which CFS and I Foundation and the other groups are advocating. But I think very nice discussion.
Gaurav, so I'll just pick up from there. Ultimately, what you're saying is that you can have investing partners and non-investing partners. So that ultimately turns into a company. You can do a LLP or a company. So ultimately, a company, if you are willing to have a doctor invest, why can't you have an investor invest? So there's a very thin line dividing the two. It's just a question of mindset. What is there? You yourself started a group practice for LASIK in Dehradun, which fell flat after some years. So I said there are
more still working, sir. It's still working well, actually.
Still working, but you haven't officially divorced, but otherwise you're divorced for always. You don't go to bed together, right? You got your own smile and somebody else, and the other person is bashing smile. So ultimately, the point is that yes, the group practice is easier said than done. I'll just give you a very small example. You were part of it. We thought that we will do, it's a group activity. We thought that we will do a group to promote, say, a smile procedure, or we say that we promote Zyoptics, which was done earlier, which is an actual example, which was done Zyoptics. So Bosch and Lomb and the doctors, they collected that we will do national advertising with every person who has a Zyoptics machine, put in money for that. But they never came through because the person said कि भाई तुम Times of India में advertise करोगे कि जनसत्ता में करोगे कि whatever दैनिक भास्कर में करोगे या टेलीग्राफ में करोगे, whatever it is. So that never came through from a fact, and he said, okay, you do it in Femina or something, which is a national magazine, things like that. They said कि भाई Femina की circulation Gorakhpur में कम है, it is more in Delhi, so you will get more advantage. So that that is the thing that comes at the end of the day. In a group also it will come that if you have to spend money, who decides what to spend and where to spend? So this never picks up. The more the disparate thoughts that happen, that becomes a problem. There has to be a command the command line which is very clear. Like the army succeeds because there is a command line, and similarly in groups you don't have command line. It is very, very good to say because it makes financial sense, but at the end of the day, today, if KKR has bought Nanavati and KKR has bought Max and they have bought BLK, etc., there's a command line of an investor sitting there who is willing to pump in money. If you have a disparate group, they would have said, why would I buy Nanavati? मैं तो मैक्स का दिल्ली में हूँ, मेरे को नानावती से क्या लेना देना है, या मेरे को कहीं पे और से क्या लेना देना है. So the problem therefore that comes is that a unified command structure is something that lacks in a group. That is my only take. Otherwise, it's absolutely economic sense to co-share the machine, to co-share the area, to co-share all the resources, to co-share and advertising, to co-share everything. So that is the same thing. If we spend money on promotion, say in Delhi and at Delhi NCR, I have 12 centers. For every 1 rupee spent, it gives me more buck. The buck gives me more bang. That is the most important thing that you have to see, that you have to grow in size to actually get the juice out of the 1 rupee that you are spending.
Quresh, there are 8 surgeons operating in your place. Are there 8 microscopes there inside?
No, they're not. There are 4 microscopes. Some of them are using, as I told you, some of them are using mine, some of them are using somebody else's. Even phaco machines, there are about four machines.
Quresh, it makes more sense to have 2 good microscopes and ask everybody to use it, no?
Exactly, but they came with that. They came from defunct nursing homes into mine. They came with their own equipment. They would have got not much. They were used to those microscopes. I had space. I said, come and use my space. That was the idea.
Quresh, it's an accidental prime minister that you were.
Yeah, correct. By default, what happened was by default.
By default.
By default.
Maipal
But
sir,
just wanted to make a point. Doctors are very wary of taking debt. We are always worried, and we want the full 100 rupees earned like that. We don't understand it. And what the new generation has come with all these startups and all, putting up in PE funds, we have not understood. That's why Maipal is called today. What is PE fund? What are the other startups that we can be funded by? Who's going to be funding us? That is something we need to understand. We have no concept about it. And 20 years back, Mohan, we had nothing of that kind to invest. So we had to rely on banks at 16% interest rate. 25 years.
18.
So today we are in a different era in the last 2005, 2010 onward, where you have multiple people who are ready to, great funds who are ready to put money, KK around. They are not looking. They know time horizon that this is a healthcare fund. They are not going to look at money for next 10 years. This is something which we need to explore, and that's why Maipal is the best who started the earliest on that.
Gaurav, you were asking me a question.
yeah, I was asking you a question, sir. That you were talking about the shortcomings of a group and how a group might not be, why it may not be very successful model as compared to the corporate model. So, if you had to give a suggestion to somebody who's starting out on practice today and aspires to have tomorrow a bigger setup and grow and kind of become big like you or maybe somebody else, a successful practitioner, what path should he take? Because if he's not keen to work as a do a job in a for example in a corporate hospital or in another structure or an institution, and he wants to be successful himself, grow as an individual and grow and mature into a bigger practice, what path would he take?
Okay, so I think I'll pick up from what Mohan said, which I often say you need to have a USP. So you're going into a service-oriented industry where you are not the only one. There are 22,000 ophthalmologists or 23,000 ophthalmologists who are member of AIOS. So obviously you are looking at 22,000 competitors. Okay, so ultimately, how are you going to be different from the others? What is it that is unique in you, which will draw patients to you and which will allow you to be scaled up? The biggest mistake that people do is that you want to settle in metros, which are densely populated, and there are 2,000 ophthalmologists in Delhi. If you have the desire and the burn in you to actually be successful, you will either have to come up with a skill set, you will have to come up with something which is different from others, and you will possibly have to come up in a location which is underserved. And then you can only grow. See, the color of money is green. It is not that the money that I get in Delhi is different from the money that I get in Dehradun or I get in Chennai or I get in Bombay. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to pick as to why a patient will come to you. That is the most important thing, and then you can grow. It's not that, Quresh, sorry, I didn't clarify. The investment didn't work when I started. My first investment came in 2008. And mind you, I don't know whether any of you know what was my first investment. Mohan, this is for you. You said corporates can advertise and you can't advertise. My first investment was a private equity treaty with Hindustan Times. Okay, it wasn't an investor of Matrix. My first private equity, my first investment was Hindustan Times. They invested 5 crores in me. So that is where they exchange space for my equity. Okay. So the point is that Times of India runs that. Hindustan Times, I don't know about South whether people run that or not, but these are just instruments which can help you grow. So ultimately, it is not necessary. That's what I'm saying. Money can come in various forms. It can come in equipment. It can come in something, whatever it is. That is how it can come. But Gaurav, to the limited question that you asked, I would say the limited answer is choose a place where you can grow. Until, of course, when you set up a thing and you do not have growth of high double digits or a triple digit growth, you have 50-60% growth year on year for the first few years, you cannot, because ultimately it's the time is limited in which you can succeed. You have that canvas to paint, to make a good painting or to not. So essence is speed. That is very, very important. And for you to be successful with speed and do something till somebody outsmarts you. We are going to be outsmarted. We outsmarted somebody else is going to come and outsmart us until, of course, you keep running that fast. So that is where you are. USP. Get into a location or an area or a technology or a skill or something which will differentiate you from others. A USP can be doing a thing at 10 rupees instead of doing it at 100 rupees. That could also be a USP. A USP could be like Himanshu doing something at 200 rupees, which is normally done at 100 rupees. So basically creating a differentiator. That is something very, very important. And
even a personal touch can be a USP.
Yeah, agree. So basically, you can go to somebody's home and see, and you can see I am available 24/7. I don't take vacations. You can call me anytime you want my surgery to be done on Sunday afternoon. I'll come and do on Sunday afternoon rather than being in a webinar or whatever it is. So basically, availability, affordability, accessibility, everything is very, very important. But differentiation is something. But Gaurav, I think the days and the times are over when people want to be in metros and they want to establish themselves. There are X number of practices which have tried and not succeeded because still the mindset of an ophthalmologist is कि मैं अपना काम करूंगा. वो कार्डियक सर्जन में नहीं है, वो न्यूरो सर्जन में नहीं है, ऑर्थोपेडिक सर्जन में नहीं है, वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली सिर्फ उसमें है, मतलब इन एन ऑप्थेल्मोलॉजी एन ENT में नहीं है. मतलब you can just pick out one specialty, that is ophthalmology, and the second specialty is pathology. These are the two things which are where people will say कि भाई मैं अपना काम, or a dermatology for example. So there are limited number of fields where people are still stuck on that mindset कि मैंने अपना काम करना है. That is all.
Here, the
Absolutely,
biggest
sir.
thing to learn is in the new era, we are not taught the physics and the understanding of a startup business. This is something which everybody needs to learn. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, learn how to make all that. But startup, what Maipal is saying is everything about. If a bloody Swiggy can, making losses can do so well and come out with an issue. You have all these things, all these new guys. What are they giving to the society? No big deal. You've been contributing a lot to livelihoods, people, quality of life. And yet we are not being able to capitalize on it. So how do we capitalize on this situation? And Maipal is giving great calls in that.